Marcos Velez, Democratic candidate for Texas Lieutenant Governor. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Thank you guys for having me.
You bet. So this is your first time running and you're running for Lieutenant Governor. Why?
I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because I've watched the needs of everyday Texans go unaddressed for far too long. When you look at the bills that are being prioritized in the Texas Senate, they're not bills that advance the interest of the single mom that's wondering how she's going to pay her light bill. They don't advance the interest of the parent that's wondering how they're going to send their kid to a school that's underfunded. They're not addressing the interest of the retiree that's wondering if they're going to have to return to the workforce because the cost of groceries have gone so high that they're struggling to make it. And so when I look at what's being prioritized in the Texas Senate, I think we need new leadership that's going to focus on issues that benefit everyday Texans and not just political donors or the uber rich 1%.
The AFL-CIO of Texas recently endorsed you over another Democrat in the race,
Yes,
State
sir.
Representative Vicki Goodwin of Austin. Why is that a big deal, and why should Democratic primary voters care?
I think the AFL-CIO endorsement is the most prestigious endorsement that a Democratic candidate can carry. It shows that you carry the values of labor and working class people, basically the backbone of Texas' economy. And so I think people should look into this campaign because went through the vetting process just like every other candidate. And at the end of the day, my message, my values align with working Texas.
And why should, just to an extension of that, why should primary voters vote for you over Representative Goodwin?
Sure. I think when you look at the two campaigns, a lot of values that align, but my priorities are priorities that are going to benefit people that go to work every single day, people that are worried about bills, people that are struggling in this economy. I do not believe that affordability is a hoax. It's a very real reality. And I think that the policies that I'm interested in pushing day one are priorities that are going to lower housing costs, they're going to raise wages, they're going to fund schools, they're going to improve conditions for people every single day. Those kitchen table issues that are becoming popular with politicians, they're only becoming popular because they're hearing them from their constituents. Those are issues that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, and they're what I've built a career fighting for and delivering on. Within organized labor, every single day, we go in and we fight for higher pay, better health care coverage, affordability for working people. We deliver on those promises, and I want to bring those gains to every Texan, not just union workers.
So what are your legislative solutions? Because you brought up a lot of issues.
Sure.
So with regards to health care, one of the topics you brought up, what's your legislative solution?
Look, I think in a perfect world, we'd be able to move to a single payer system, but that's just not a reality. For now, I believe
But that's not going to happen in Texas.
It's not a reality.
That's a national issue.
Yeah, I think for now in Texas, though, expanding the current Medicare, Medicaid system that we have, I think that'd be a big deal. That'd be something that immediately would improve everyday Texans' access to health care. We have the highest rate of uninsured people in the nation, and so I think that has to be a priority day one. When you look from a legislative standpoint, we have to raise the state minimum wage. Affordability goes hand in hand with wages. Wages have not kept up with productivity, and Texans are feeling the brunt of that. A lot of people would argue that there aren't a whole lot of Texans that earn the minimum wage, but if you're not earning a living wage for the work that you do, you might as well be earning minimum wage. You're not making it. School district funding. We took $1 billion out of Texas education. We shifted it into vouchers, but we've carried over a surplus in the state budget for several years. That's taxpayer money that isn't going back to working Texans. And so when we look at funding schools, we have to make sure that schools have enough money to thrive and that we can fund teacher salaries and teacher retirement. And when you address those issues, I think the economic situation in Texas improves for everyone.
Let me go back to what you said before about the minimum wage, a livable wage. Do you have a number in mind?
I don't, and here's why. Between now and November, the cost of living could rise significantly. And so I think if you tie yourself down to a specific number, you're boxing yourself in. What I will tell you is I support the minimum wage being in line with whatever data shows is a living wage at the time we pass the legislation.
And I know some of the times, because obviously this has been an issue in other states and they've raised their minimum wage, and then let's say for people just starting out, so people who go work in McDonald's, et cetera, that kind of a job, and then the businesses that own them decrease the number of employees that they have because they can't afford to pay more. So what do you say to that? Does there have to be a balance or no?
I think that's a bit of a fallacy. I think that's a reaction by corporate America. It's an angry reaction to having to pay more money. But if you compare profitability to the actual take-home pay of employees, payroll is not a one-for-one. If you raise payroll by 10%, that's not a 10% increase in your bottom line, and it's just an economics lesson that corporate America likes to take advantage of. When we increase the minimum wage, we also increase the amount of money that's free-flowing in the local economy. People spend more money at local businesses, they have more money to spend on their children, and so it's an upward lift for the entire economy. We just have to make sure that when we pass that legislation, that we also have safeguards in place for small businesses, and some of the other smaller organizations that may struggle with that increase, but we have the resources to ensure that we can provide those avenues for them.
What would that look like?
I think the state of Texas leaves a lot of money on the table. There are revenue streams like legalizing THC, legalizing gambling that we've shied away from, and I think it's because we don't keep a firm separation between church and state. When you look at the economic benefits of legalizing THC and gambling in the state of Texas, that's a huge amount of revenue that we could bring into the state. We could allocate to education. We could also ensure that we have the financial resources to support small businesses through grants and other programs to ensure that they're able to pay their employees a living wage.
You mentioned before schools.
Yes, sir.
And the legislature this last session, last year, increased the number of dollars by, I believe, $8 billion, new money into schools. They gave teachers pay raises, et cetera. Not good enough?
No, sir. So yes, they did allocate $8 billion, but we have to look at the dollar per student that's being spent in this state. And if you look at dollars per student, we're significantly lower than other states that have way better academic performance than the state of Texas. And so, hey, look, it was a step. But if you ask the teacher that's wondering how she's going to pay her bills, if you ask the school district that's trying to figure out, how they're going to keep the lights on, look, it just wasn't enough.
You brought up groceries before. What can a state government do to lower prices at the grocery store?
Yeah, so look, I think the best thing we can do is raise wages. While we can't immediately have an impact on the cost of food, there are things we can do, but the fastest way that we can make food more affordable for people is raising wages.
Now, if you are to be elected, you still may have a Republican-dominated Senate.
Yes, sir.
So how would you work with the Republican majority?
So it's funny, people act like a Republican majority is like an impossibility. It's the most probable outcome. And so when you look at that, it's no different than the situation I deal with on a daily basis. I work for a labor union. I bargain against the largest multinational corporations on the planet. Some of these corporations have an annual budget that's larger than the state biannual budget. I'm always bargaining in hostile environments where we're in the minority. And again, we succeed for working people because our message aligns with working people's values and we hold people accountable. So if people from the other party say that they support working people, then they're going to have to prove it by pushing legislation that benefits working class Texans. And I think that's a bipartisan thing that we can approach from both sides of the aisle, but we have to make sure that it's a priority.
And how would you work with, if let's say Governor Abbott wins again, as many people suspect will happen, and you have a Republican speaker, how do you get along with them?
Look, the same way that you get along with some of these corporations, you can collaborate without capitulating. I think the biggest problem in the Democratic Party is a lot of people believe that to work across the aisle, you have to bow down to their demands. We identify the low-hanging fruit that we can agree on, and we push for the things that we believe. And so, look, I do not believe that we advance the interest of working Texans without raising the state minimum wage. And so for me, any discussion on legislation that doesn't do that, that's a non-starter. But again, if they have an idea that's good for working Texans, it's good for the middle class, then it's good for me, and I'll work with them on it.
You mentioned the word compromise. Isn't that a dirty word in both political parties?
So I believe you can compromise without capitulating. You don't lose your values. You don't give up the farm. I think it's a dirty word because our political experience has shown us that for a deal to be reached, one side has to get everything they want and the other side gets nothing. And I'm talking about working to a deal where both sides can leave with dignity and they feel like they address their interests, but we don't leave working people behind.
What about property tax relief? There's a lot of discussion about that.
And it's necessary. People are being forced out of their homes. A lot of people think that that's ridiculous, but if you're a normal, everyday working Texan and you bought your house 15 years ago, your property taxes now are higher than what your monthly mortgage was when you bought your home. That's unacceptable. People that retire on a fixed income should not have to choose between prescription drugs and their property taxes. If we bring new revenue streams into the state of Texas, like legalizing gambling, legalizing THC, we tax them, we regulate them, and we do what we're supposed to do with them, we can shift that money over to cover the burden that's being carried by homeowners right now. It's being carried by renters in the form of their monthly rent because those taxes are passed on in their rent assessments. We benefit all Texans by lowering property tax.
Well, Governor Abbott vetoed legislation that would ban all THC. So THC is going to be regulated in the state of Texas. And from what I read, they just released, the fees associated with that, and they're very high.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying you support that, but you want to put it to a specific use.
I support it. I want to put it to a specific use, but I also want to expand it. I believe that we could go even further.
How so?
I think we could legalize cannabis in the state of Texas, like actual
recreational marijuana.
Yes, sir.
Why is that important?
I think that adults are already using it. I think you do two things. When you legalize recreational use, you eliminate the black market for it, because now people can walk into a store, they know they're buying something that's safe, that's been tested, and you have a tax stream that before that money was going to illicit purposes. Now you're directing it to a use that benefits the public. And so it's a win-win for people that say it's not their cup of tea. Hey, look, personally, I don't partake in it, but I don't believe that there's anything wrong with consenting adults, in the privacy of their home doing whatever they want with THC or marijuana.
And just going back to property tax relief, I know the state has addressed that. Taxpayers and other residents have voted for it. You want more of it.
Definitely. Hey, home appraisals have gone through the roof. You ask your average Texan, if the appraisal board would give them what they appraised their house at, they'd probably let them have it the next day. I mean, the tax system in Texas has gotten so out of control that it's crushing normal everyday people.
Let me ask you about border security.
Sure.
Republicans want to continue spending money to make sure that the border is secure, because they say they don't know who's going to be in the White House after 2028. Where are you on that? Should the state continue to spend billions of dollars on making sure that the border is secure?
I think that a secure border is something that it has bipartisan support, but the political theater that we've engaged in, shoving little old ladies into vans, snatching children, I mean, that's unacceptable. And so I don't think anyone believes that we should be shooting American citizens in the back while they're on their knees on all fours. Do we need secure borders? Yes, but do we need to target members of our community? No. If we want to go after violent criminals, I believe better funding for local law enforcement. Hey, look, state agencies, that would do a lot. But spending all this money that we're spending on ICE it's a waste of our money.
But in the state of Texas, for the state spending and the fact that you have state law enforcement agencies working with Border Patrol, et cetera, where are you on that?
I think we've completely lost track of the original purpose of border security. I mean, what we're doing right now is not working, and I don't support it.
And my last question to you is, we saw over the weekend Taylor Ramett, Democrat, win, handily defeat a Republican in the special Senate District 9 seat in Tarrant County. And here you are, he's a union president. Here you are, you get the union seal of approval in your race in the Democratic primary. Is labor having a moment here?
I want to be careful to not take away from Taylor's victory. Taylor won because he was a phenomenal candidate. He had a message that resonated with working people. I think a lot of politicians right now are trying to co-opt his message and apply it to their campaign. What I'll say about Taylor is he won because he's a phenomenal guy, and he has a message that is credible and resonates with working people. When we look at labor as a whole, I think the reason that labor candidates will continue to be successful is because our message is our real lived experience, and it's not some talking point that we learn from a consultant. When I go and I tell people that I've struggled in life, it's because I've actually struggled. When I tell people I understand the stresses of raising a family, it's because I'm not some multimillionaire. I'm a normal everyday guy that hits a clock and does a job for a living. I think what a lot of politicians lack is authenticity, and Taylor's an incredibly authentic guy, and I think authentic candidates will do well up and down the ballot regardless of party affiliation.
Well, what does it say about your race?
I think people should pay attention to the fact that we're viable candidates, and I believe that our race has every opportunity to be a successful race. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that we could win. Labor's values have always been popular. You're just seeing them in the political umbrella right now more than you've seen them before, because we've grown dissatisfied with candidates that say they speak our language and forget about us.
Marcos Velez, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
We appreciate it.
Appreciate you.